Hi, welcome to Music Production. In this lecture, I'll be talking about audio signal flow. So, what is audio signal flow? Audio signal flow is the path of an audio signal that takes from the source to the output. When we are talking about audio signal flow, we can think about a Google Maps. So, when you are going from one place to another place, you must have a beginning point and you must have a destination point. So same thing in the audio signal flow, you must have an input and we also need to have an output. Now in order to understand the signal flow better, we are going to take a look on the analog mixer. In this lecture, I'll be using the Mackie Onyx 1640. Now in front of you is the Mackie Onyx 1640. As you can see over here, at the top, you see the number 1, 2, 3, 4 until 16. Now this number is basically represent the number of the channels in the mixer. So that means you can connect 16 inputs at the same time. Now the signal flow of an analog console is basically from the top to the bottom and all the way to the right side. Now if you see over here, from the top to the bottom, there are so many things that is actually the signal is going to before finally it reaches the main mix. Now let's take a look one by one. Over here, you see the 48. The 48 basically represent the phantom power. Phantom power is usually used when you are using a condenser microphone. Now condenser microphone is created from the electronics chips and it requires the electronic power in order to activate the microphone. If you are using a dynamic microphone or ribbon microphone, there's no need to activate the phantom power. Now below the phantom power, this is the filter. This is the high pass filter. You will let the high frequency goes while you will eliminate all the low frequency. The standard high pass filter of the analog console is around 80 Hz. On some analog mixer, it may have a different frequency. But what is most important is the frequency of the high pass filter is already predetermined. So that means in analog console or analog mixer, there's no flexibility for you to change the frequency of the high pass filter. Now over here, if the line input, so basically if you are going to record your electric guitar and you want to have it directly connected to the console, you can just like plug the 1/4 inch into here and then you can change from the microphone signal to the line signal. Now below here, this is the gain button. Now the function of the gain button basically to amplify the input signal that comes from the microphone go to the console usually is very low. In order for you to boost it, now you need something that called as the microphone preamp. On some mixer, they will state it is as gain. Below the gain button, this is the EQ. You can activate or deactivate the EQ by pressing the knob. And these are all the knobs to control the frequency. On some manufacturer, they may only provide 2 knobs, which is only high and bass, or maybe they provide 3 knobs, which is high, mid, and bass. And for Mackie 1640, there are 4 knobs, which is the high mid, the low, and the low mid. Is it better to have more knobs to control the frequency, or is better to have less knobs? Well, it depends on the needs. If let's say you are going to work on a lot of sessions that require specific adjustment on the specific frequency, the more the button may be helpful, because you can have more flexibility to select the specific frequency. When you only provided with bass and high or treble, there's very limited opportunity for you to really adjust a specific frequency. Now below the equalizer, this is the aux. Now the usage of the aux is basically to send the signal to the headphone, or even to send the input signal to the monitor. Now in the live sessions applications, most of the time you will see the engineer will be using the aux to send the input signal to the monitor stage. But in the recording studio applications, the engineer will be using the aux to send the input signal to the headphone, or maybe even use the aux to send the signal into processing. For the amount of the aux is depending of the manufacturer. Some manufacturer provide maybe only one aux, some provide two, some provide even more. For Mackie Onyx 1640, there are 6 aux, which is give you more opportunity to decide where you want to send the input signal to. Now below the aux, this is pen. The function of pen is to locate the instruments to the speakers. So when you record a vocal, you can decide whether you want to put the vocal to the left side, to the center, or to the right side. Now after the pen port is the mute button. Now the mute button basically to block the entire input signal from going to the master output. So when you mute an instrument, or when you press the mute button, you are not going to hear anything, because all the input signal will be blocked at here. Now below is the volume fader. Now the volume fader basically to adjust the volume level. So if you like to have more kick drum, then you can push this kick drum fader. Or maybe if let's say you would like to have more bass, then you can identify where is the channel for the bass, then you can adjust the volume fader. Now next over here, this is we call as a bass. Now for Mackie 1640, basically when the signal goes into this channel strip, you need to decide where do you want to assign the signal to. For Mackie, there are 4 buses and 1 stereo. 4 buses, which is 2 stereo buses, 1 and 2, and also 3 and 4. Now when you press the bus button, which is 1 and 2, you will go to these sections. You see this is sub 1 and this is sub 2. So basically when you press channel 1 and then you press the sub 1 and 2, the signal from channel 1 will be direct into sub 1 and 2. So that means you will need to push this sub 1 and 2 fader to 0, then you can hear the sound. Now if let's say you do not want to send the signal to the subgroup, you can just press the stereo, which is the main mix. So once you press the main mix, the signal will be routed directly into the main mix, and you need to push up the fader in order for you to hear it. Now by default, usually all the sub level and main mix, we always put it at 0, just to ensure that this is the maximum output level that we would like to have. If let's say the sound is too soft, you may want to adjust the individual channels before you adjust the sub mix. Most of the time for the sub mix and main mix, you always leave it at 0, so we won't be like touching the level. Now at the bottom is the solo button. So when you press the solo button, it's gonna mute the entire channels except for the related channels. So if let's say I would like to listen to channel number 1, so I will press the solo button on channel number 1, and the sound from channel number 2 to channel number 16 will be muted. When you select subgroup 1 and 2 or 3 and 4 on the individual channels, don't forget to come to the sub assign, and then make sure that you press uh, the to assign the left and right to the main mix. Now the reason why we are having the subgroup is also to help the engineers who is working on the multiple individual channels. For example, for the drum channels. Now, when you are recording a drum, or maybe you are having live sessions, usually a drum set will be taking more than one channel, and it can up to 8 channels. Now, for you to adjust the entire level of the drum, if you need to do it channel by channels, it's gonna be challenging. Now, the simple way to adjust the entire volume level of the drum is just by adjusting the subgroup. Let's take a look on the back side of the Mackie Onyx 1640. Now this is the back side of the Mackie Onyx 1640. You can see there are a few different kind of holes. This is for the input microphone. This is you are going to use XLR cable, and for this one, if you are using line level signals, for example, you are going to record your keyboard or electric guitar, then you can connect directly from the output of your keyboard or electric guitar goes to the input of the line input. Now over here is the insert. Usually we use insert when you want to send the signal to the external processor, for example, like compressor. For your lab, you won't be using any insert, but you need to know what are the types of cables that you are going to use for the recording, and what are the types of cables in the audio productions, and what is the signal flow starting from the input to the output. Now over here is the main outs. Main outs basically for you to take the signal from the mixer and it goes to the speakers. So if you have 2 speakers left and right, you are going to connect from here by using 2 XLR cables. Some of the speakers, they may be using TRS. So depending of the mixer or console, some mixer or console, they provide the TRS output. So you may use the TRS connections. And also you need to check the input of your loudspeaker. If the input of your loudspeaker require 1/4 inch, then you'll be using a 1/4 inch cable. If the input of your loudspeaker require XLR, then you are going to use XLR cable. That's all the lecture for today. So try to spend a few times to take a look again on the different kind of analog mixer or console, and see whether you can identify the signal flow. On the analog console or mixer, most of the time the signal flow should be more or less the same. There are not much of the difference, except maybe the number of the channel is more, or maybe they have more EQ, or they may have some or 1 or 2 signal processing. Now when you are using a digital mixer, it may look a little bit different. Now whatever that you are looking on the analog mixer or console, what you see is basically what you get. But in digital mixer, usually it has a lot of different layers, and which is if it may confuse for those who just learn about audio. So this is the reason why it's important that you have the strong fundamentals in analog mixer, then you can understand how the signal flow goes. When you move to the digital mixer, the concept of the signal flow is should be the same. The difference is just the look of the digital console is more compact compared to the analog mixer. Now in analog mixer, there's no many, or maybe there's even no of layering, but when you move to digital mixer, you'll be seeing a lot of different layers. And what is good things about the digital mixer, on the digital mixer, most of the digital mixer today, they already have a touch screen, so you don't need to, if let's say you want to move really fast, you can just press the screen, and then you can move it. Or once you press it, there's a button, just one button to adjust all the parameters. And the way how to send the accent and also of the effects in the digital mixer may be also a little bit different. You'll be learning more about digital mixer when you are moving to year 3 during the live sound technology. So in our module for music productions, we are going to focus more on the recording, how to capture a good sound recording. And after you're done with the recording, then we are going to move to the editing.